everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome to part 2 of the Oprah interview. We are going to pick up right where we left off yesterday. Oprah begins this portion discussing some more of the headline situations and coming into the family and what that was like for Meghan Markle. She lists off a few things about Meghan Markle that made her different, or that were, I guess, just part of who Meghan was. Now, this is interesting because since this interview has aired, Harry has taken issue with these very same words being used in reference to Meghan, irritated that the media classified Meghan as these things, as these stereotypes, and he used it in a negative way. But yet he didn't seem to take any issue with Oprah using this in this interview.
An American, you came in as an actress, you came in as a divorcee, you came in as an independent woman, you came in as the first mixed race person to marry into the family. That concern you in being able to fit in.
I thought about it because they made me think about it.
And at this part, she does not clearly identify whether she's talking about members of the royal family, the institution as a whole, or the media. She just says, they made me think about it. Who?
Silent, or were you silenced?
The latter.
That she was silenced. It implies someone literally came to her and directly said, don't speak at all. But that's really a mischaracterization of what happened. She had been advised by PR experts who have worked for the palace, for the monarchy for a long time and were experienced in the field to not comment on tabloid stuff because it kind of takes a little wind out of the sails and it helps the stories to die away. The more you comment, the more there is to say about it, the more the story stays alive.
I think everyone welcomed me. My understanding and my experience of the past 4 years is nothing like what it looks like.
This gross exaggeration that it was nothing what it looked like, it does imply that Catherine was not nice or welcoming at all, that it was nothing like what it looked like. At least some of it had to have been at least relatively pleasant. For goodness sakes, Catherine was under no obligation to go on any sort of a joint engagement with just Meghan at all. The woman was trying to make things work, and it would seem that one person either wasn't receiving it well, refusing to see it properly as it was, or was uncooperative with this process. And that would be Meghan.
I know there's an obsession with how things look, but has anyone talked about how it feels?
For these people, image does have to be strongly controlled.
They were willing to lie to protect other members of the family, but they weren't willing to tell the truth to protect me and my husband.
This is complete nonsense. Furthermore, protect implies danger. But really, it's simply stories about her bad behavior that were out in the press that she wanted to be refuted, or some sort of a story out there saying that that's not true. The palace, could you imagine getting involved in petty gossip? It would just be ridiculous and discredit them and take respect away from them as an institution. It would just not work at all. And also, it has been exposed since that a lot of the stories Harry and Meghan were butthurt about were actually true. So, as I've said previously, the palace cannot put out a statement saying such and such is just categorically false if that actually did happen and was true, because then the palace could be caught out as lying and lose credibility for who knows how long. It would be very damaging. Also, at times, especially if it involved staff, like staff leaving or the bullying report, they kind of were in a tight spot. Because if they came out to defend Meghan, then that would be seen as them abandoning these employees. And as employers and HR departments, for example, have a duty to protect those employees from these powerful bosses saying that their experience wasn't true or that these employees were lying. That would be just horrible, an HR nightmare. So they weren't in a position where they could defend Meghan, even if they wanted to, once there were claims that she had been unfair or unprofessional towards employees who were employed and protected by HR.
One of the members of the family, she came over and she said, why don't you just lay low for a little while? Because you are everywhere right now.
This lay low story, this has been disputed. Palace sources have since said that no one in the inner circles really believed this story from Meghan Markle. Nobody knows who this female family member was that came over. People doubt that this conversation took place at all, or at least not in this exact manner. That is protection. The very protection that Meghan is claiming that she wasn't getting, she was getting. It is publicity control, and it is protection for her to lay low, to do less. For example, the baby shower got her lots of negative publicity because it's not traditional for people of the UK, so they were going to kind of be like, oh, it's an American thing, it's newsy in a way for the press. But also, she took a private jet and several other private jets at the same time just for this lavish baby shower, which was seen as a display of wealth. And they had been talking a lot about carbon footprints and the environmentalism and stuff like that. So it was seen as hypocritical. So telling Meghan to lay low and not do things like that was for her benefit, to protect her from such bad press that she got when she didn't listen.
Many people have asked if I'm okay.
Would it be fair to say not really okay? It's really been a struggle.
Yes.
Meghan and Harry's South Africa woes me interviews were received so poorly for many reasons. But some of the main reasons, or like biggest, most glaring errors in judgment here, included the fact that they were in an area at this specific time when Meghan said these words. She was in an area that dealt with impoverished people and women who were going through very, 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 very challenging circumstances. In comparison, it is a gross misjudgment to bring up whether or not you're feeling okay when you are clearly privileged. Like, we could just keep it very, very simple. Privileged or going through a very challenging time and not privileged, do not complain if you are in that space culturally. So big lack of awareness there. But secondly, everybody who's watching this, like the general public, we all go to jobs whether we feel like it or not, and we go and smile and be cooperative with our coworkers and do what it is that we have to do and work hard, whatever our jobs are, no matter what, because that's what you have to do and you don't really have a choice in it. Meghan and Harry being wealthy on their own with Harry's inheritances and whatnots, people aren't stupid. They know that this man has money, whether he's part of the royal family or not, but also people who are quite privileged in life, who are actual little royals, who have people to help them, who don't have to deal with the day-to-day grind and day-to-day chores and don't have to work 60-hour work weeks or else their bills aren't going to get paid, things like that. People who can afford healthcare. Like, we're talking about people who are in such a different realm that for them to be publicizing that nobody asked them if they're okay and that it was hard and they were tired despite having so much help and assistants and secretaries and home cleaners and people to iron their clothes in the morning if they just asked, and cooks, not having to cook a meal. All of this stuff taken care of and organized for them. To say that there's pain behind it and that they had to smile and put on a nice face on this trip and act like they were happy, trying to frame that like we should feel bad for her was a huge, huge mistake. Because it is still infinitely easier to go on a trip like this and be managed. Have people manage it all for you, all the logistics taken care of. Have nice food cooked for you and whatnot. And be relatively pampered in comparison to other people's realities. Okay? It's just really big mistake.
It just hit me so hard because we were making it look like everything was fine. I could understand why people were really surprised to see that there was pain there because we were doing our job. Our job was to be on and to smile. And so when he asked me that, I guess I had felt that it had never occurred to anyone that I wasn't okay and that I had really been suffering.
But really, this came across to me as her trying to defend that terribly ill thought out interview comment because it had huge backlash for Harry and Meghan. Huge backlash. And I think that she thought this would be an opportunity for her to try to defend why she said that in a way that would take away from the negative impressions people were left with. So this segment of the interview, we start to see Meghan trying to defend specific bad behaviors that she had been called out for. And you'll notice throughout the remaining parts of this interview, and even some of part 1, that Meghan was utilizing this, and this is a pattern we've seen her do lots and lots and lots. Anytime she has an opportunity, she seems to try to utilize it as a way to clap back at criticisms and try to change narratives around mistakes that she has made that are really indefensible. That there's really no excuse for the "I'm not okay, nobody's asked if I'm okay" comment. There's really no excuse for that. And once again, people view that as a lie because everybody asks how you're doing when they see you. So it makes no sense. Maketh no sense at all. But this was one of the biggest moments in this particular interview where she really seemed to be only including this in a really disjointed way where there wasn't good flow to it. So it seemed unnatural. Like she kind of remembered, oh yeah, I need to plug this in here about trying to defend that Tom Bradby, "I'm not okay" moment.
I would sit up at night and I was just like, I don't understand how all of this is being churned out. And again, I wasn't seeing it, but it's almost worse when you feel it through the expression of my mom or my friends or them calling me crying, just like, "Meg, they're not protecting you."
One thing that really started to annoy people watching this was Meghan saying that she wasn't seeing the headlines, that she didn't know what the articles were saying, but her friends and family were telling her and also calling her crying. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that just sounds incredibly strange. So many elements to it. Meghan doesn't act like somebody who hasn't read the headlines, and it's been proven time and time again, she's had slip-ups, that she does in fact read the headlines and does know. But also, Harry and Meghan themselves have put out statements consistently sort of arguing with rebuttals to stories and headlines, which they wouldn't be doing if they truly didn't pay attention to headlines at all. That just wouldn't be happening. So that's a big inconsistency. But also, if somebody is pregnant and distressed hearing about negative press coverage, why would her friends and family continue to call her and call her while crying about negative headlines? It just makes no sense. And why are they so bothered? Why would they be crying? So the point is that this is sort of an unbelievable scenario that she has here. Furthermore, if she was told that things are getting really bad and her mom or her family member or her friends were crying over headlines that were not even about them, were brought to tears over it, then wouldn't Meghan herself go and look and check it out and see how bad it was or was not? Wouldn't she look into it and see for her own eyes at that point? It would be much more believable had Meghan said, "I really tried to keep my eyes away from the headlines because I didn't want it to affect how I did my job or how I felt, and I was pregnant at the time, so I didn't want to see anything negative." But family members and friends were consistently telling me that there were negative headlines and asking me about it. And so I went ahead and took a look at that point, and I was so shocked, and it was very overwhelming. It was a bad idea or something like that. And that set her off. Period of time in which she felt very negative because it was like all at once. She went and she checked to see what everybody's so worried about and was super surprised and shocked and sad about the whole thing. You know, that would make sense to people, and people would find that a lot more believable. But instead, she took this very unbelievable approach, trying to say that basically she hadn't seen anything, never paid attention to anything, and her family and friends were so distraught that they were calling her crying and continuing to inform her of these negative headlines despite it stressing her out.
We had to go to an official event. We had to go to this event at the Royal Albert Hall. A friend said, "I know you don't look at pictures, but oh my God, you guys look so great."
Yeah.
And sent it to me, and I zoomed in, and what I saw was the truth of what that moment was, because right before we had to leave for that, I had just had that conversation with Harry.
The visit to HR and these emails have been disputed by sources close to the palace, that these things were taken out of context or didn't happen at all, or not as much as Meghan says, or that she mischaracterized the situation a great deal.
If you zoom in, what I see is how tightly his knuckles are gripped around mine. You can see the whites of our knuckles because we are smiling and doing our job, but we're both just trying to hold on.
The rumors floated around at the time. Harry had a different +1 for this appearance. because Meghan was further along in her pregnancy and they were assuming, I guess, to not be too demanding and not get her out there, especially because she had been writing all these emails leading up to this point, that they were trying to not schedule Meghan to do things. So they had arranged for Harry to attend with someone else because they were trying to make sure Meghan didn't have to work while going through a difficult time, because she had been, as she said, complaining essentially, or just like she says, reaching out for help, but we'll get into the minutiae of that in a minute. The point is, the rumor swirled at the time that Harry had been arranged to go with someone else so that Meghan could have time off to deal with how she was feeling, look after herself, rest up, focus on her pregnancy. But Meghan didn't want to be left out of this. She wanted to go. So she had created a situation where Harry had to accommodate her request to attend with him and cancel his alternative +1. That was the story that came out at the time. An inconsistency that is impossible to ignore is her claim of no help and support, while she simultaneously points out that people were understanding to what she was going through. She says that people said that their heart goes out to her in their replies to her. So that in and of itself is a form of support. It's empathizing with you, even though there's nothing they can do to fix it. They are being empathetic, and that is supportive. So she's contradicted herself there in that statement.
Down in that royal box, I was just weeping. And he was gripping my hand, and then it was, okay, intermission's coming. Lights are about to come on.
Saying that she was sent the picture from someone else is just taking an unnecessary step too far to try to distance herself from admitting to the fact that she did look at her press coverage and did see the picture. She should have just said that she had looked at the picture or had seen a picture. When somebody is lying, sometimes they sprinkle in unnecessary details, and that's what a lot of this interview came across as. She also says, crying every time the lights went down. Many people have disputed this, that the royal box not only had other people in it besides just her and Harry who would have noticed. Rumors are that those people have disputed this claim or said they saw nothing of the sort, but also people who have been inside Royal Albert Hall during performances say that the royal box is never pitch black. You can always see the people sitting up there the entire time, so there wouldn't really be an opportunity for her to be weeping when the lights were down. What do you think?
I would sit up at night and I was just like, I don't understand how all of this is being churned out. And again, I wasn't seeing it, but I see the death threats. I see the racist propaganda.
Meghan saying that she would sit up at night not understanding how all of it was being churned out is once again inconsistent with somebody who's not seeing it, but just having people tell you about it. You wouldn't really be staying up at night not understanding how it's all being churned out because you wouldn't know just how much is being put out or not. It maketh no sense. Many people struggle to believe Meghan's account of her mental health crisis. I am not here to dispute it or poke holes in it, but it is impossible to ignore the wider implications of what she is claiming here. As a pregnant lady, this is something that just simply doesn't make sense to most people hearing this account. Additionally, while pregnant, you are under close medical care in which they are asking you about your mental and emotional well-being at consistent intervals. Furthermore, Prince Harry has pointed out in his book Spare that he had his therapist on speed dial long before this happened. Additionally, a lot of members of the royal family, namely the Princess of Wales and the Prince of Wales, Catherine and William, as well as the wider support network of Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, or even Zara and Mike Tyndall, lots and lots of people have been advocates for mental health and well-being and would have been an easy person to reach out to, even just for a referral of, hey, do you know a therapist that I can trust to go to or could squeeze me in perhaps to see? None of this really adds up when you think about the general context of people who are unable to access mental health care, typically being those who are lacking the resources or the money to just get in somewhere. If you have money and a way to get to an appointment, which she did, you can typically be seen. That's the unfortunate part about the mental health care system worldwide in most situations that if you can afford it, you know, you can usually get it. But if you can't, you might have long waits or have struggled to get any appointments at all, struggle to get it covered by insurances, etc. She didn't have those types of challenges, so that contributes to people being skeptical about this account in general. Other people have questioned the gravity of her mental health despair whilst pregnant, the magnitude of what she was claiming to have been going through at the time. I do have to tiptoe around the subject just a tad, but you get what I'm trying to say. The magnitude of this claim while pregnant is something that a lot of people find to be just a bit odd, or just not really add up. Leave your opinions in the comments. But furthermore, this situation where she's talking about the HR person said they couldn't help because she's not a paid employee is completely factual and understandable. Meghan is not an employee. She's a boss. So why is she going to HR? It makes no sense. Why is she, if she and Harry, why are they even trying to get someone else to solve this problem for them? Why are they not just solving it?
One of the people that I reached out to, who's continued to be a friend and confidant, was one of my husband's mom's best friends, one of Diana's best friends. Because it's like, who else could understand what's actually like on the inside?
Meghan was surrounded by people who understood what it was like. People who had been criticized by the press, hounded by the press, had a rough go of it with the press, understood royal life, understand marrying into the family as somebody who is not part of the aristocracy, all of these things. Meghan was surrounded by people who got it on various levels, being pregnant in the public eye, all of it. And yet she says no one else would understand what it was like. And also, people have disputed this claim that she reached out to and cozied up to one of Diana's best friends.
My passport, my driver's license, my keys, all that gets turned over. I didn't see any of that anymore.
Meghan traveled quite a bit during this very time, including her baby shower trip over to New York City. Her and Harry took a couple of vacations where they certainly would have had to have their passports. But when you have staff, one of the things that they do to make things easier on you is keep track of your important documents and keep them safe, which is protection. Keeping your vital documents safe from possibly being stolen or lost is part of protecting you. One thing I do not argue with at all and thought was a good thing to include in the interview is to have compassion for people no matter what. You don't know what they're going through behind the scenes, and sometimes people appear to be just fine even when they are not feeling super awesome, and that is totally true and a good message to put out there. And if she would have stayed more tightly focused to just that and left a lot of this sensational drama, gossipy type stuff that was a lot of it exaggerated and lies, she would have been received a lot better on this Oprah interview. But leave your thoughts in the comments. The playlist with all the videos for this series should be popping up right here, right about now. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.